Please make sure you have this note sheet and that you are ready to make notes that match mine completely. I'm going to tell you to pause and work out some examples as we go through. Please do so you can check your understanding. So we're going to start by talking about interior angles, which is the inside angles of your triangle. And the interior angles of a triangle must always add up to 180 degrees. So when you add all three angles within a triangle, you should get 180 degrees. What that means for you in the algebra classroom is if you are asked to find a variable, you are going to add your two known angles, 101 plus 32, which gives you 133, and you would subtract that sum from the total possible degrees in a triangle, 180, and that's how you would find your answer for the missing angle. So what you're doing algebraically is you're really creating an equation. You're saying x plus 101 plus 32 equals 180. Then you're combining like terms, isolating the variable, and that's how you get x equals 180. All right? So I want you to try example 2 on your own now, so go ahead and pause the video. I'm going to work it out, and you may check your work with me. So angle Y is what we're looking for. I know measure of angle X is 27. Angle Z is 22. So I'm going to add those two values. When I do that, I get 49. Then I'm going to subtract 49 from 180, and I get my missing angle measure, which is 131. Algebraically, I'm doing 27 plus y plus 22 equals 180. 49 plus y equals 180. Isolating the variable, y equals 131. All right? So those are pretty basic questions. But what if you get a question like example 3? In this one, it brings in some variables for us. So the measure of angle x is 3x. The measure of angle y is x plus 45. Measure of angle z is 9x minus 21. So I can't really say I know any of those angle measures yet. So I have to use my knowledge of the interior angles to find x, so I can then know these angle measures. So what I would do is I would add all these angles up just like normal. When I add those up, it would be equal to 180. Then I combine like terms, meaning all those values with a variable, I add those together. And then all those without a variable, I group those. So when I do that, I should get 13x plus 24 equals 180. So I'm going to move all my variables to one side, all my non-variables to the other, so I'm going to subtract 24 so that I can get my variable alone. When I subtract 24, I get 156. Then I divide by my coefficient, just like we did when we were solving equations, and I get x equals 12. Now that I know x, I'm going to go back in and plug in x for each of those. So for the measure of angle x, I'm actually going to have 3 times 12, which gives me 36 degrees for measure of angle x. For measure of angle y, I have 12 plus 45, which equals 57 degrees. Then I have measure of angle z, 9 times 12 minus 21, all of which could be put in your calculator, and you get 87 degrees. So that's how we find these missing angle measures. We figure out what x is using solving equations knowledge, which you have mastered, and then we plug those values back in for our variable. So I want you to pause the video here and do example 4. Alright, I'm going to go through and show you how I solved this so you can check your work with mine. So measure of angle x is x plus 1, measure of angle y, 3x plus 20, measure of angle z, x minus 6. I add all of those together. And I set them equal to 180. Then I combine my like terms. So that's a like term, like term, like term. I'm going to group these. And when I do that, I get 5x plus 15 equals 180. I want to isolate my variable. And I get 5x equals 165. Divide by my coefficient of 5. And I get x equals 33. So then I plug that value back in to each measure. So measure of angle x would be 33 plus 1, which gives me 34 degrees. Measure of angle y would be 3 times 33 plus 20, which would be equivalent to 119 degrees. Measure of angle z, 33 minus 6, which is 27 degrees. And to check your work, even if I were not doing this video, you could add these angle measures together, and if they added up to 180, you probably did something right. So that is great. All right, so that's interior angles, the inside angle relationships of a triangle, and that's any triangle. Now let's talk about exterior angles. So interior angle and its adjacent exterior. Adjacent means next to, but its adjacent exterior angle always add up to 180 degrees because together they form a straight line. So here we have R, an interior angle, and S, an exterior angle, and it's the one right next to it. And when I add those together, I get 180 degrees because they create a straight line like you see here. So what that means for you in algebra is that for example 5, if I know measure of angle R is 35, then I could do 180 minus 35 equals the measure of angle S, which is 145. What you're doing algebraically is 35 plus S equals 180. Subtracting 35 from each side to isolate your variable, S equals 145. All right, so I want you to try example 6, pause the video, come back to the video to check your answer. For this one, they give us the measure of angle S, which is 127 degrees. So I'm going to subtract from 180 that 127, and when I do that, I get 53 for R. Or you could have done 127 plus R equals 180. Subtract 127 from both sides, and you get the same answer of R equals 53 degrees. Okay, example 7 is similar to 3 and 4 for the interior angles. So here they give us 2x plus 3 and 6x plus 1. When I add those together, they should equal 180. Then you combine like terms. 8x plus 4 equals 180. Isolate the variable. 8x equals 176. Divide by coefficient. X is equal to 22. Then you plug that into your angle equations. So you have measure of angle R equals 2 times 22 plus 3, which would be 47 degrees. Measure of angle S, 6 times 22 plus 1, which would be 133. Okay, so you try example 8, then check back in the video with my work. So they give you 5x minus 10, 10x plus 5. When I add those, set them equal to 180, combine like terms, and I would get 15x minus 5 equals 180. Isolate my variable. 15x equals 185. Divide by my coefficient of 15, and I get x equals 12.3 repeating. So when I plug that in, I'm going to have measure of angle R equals 5 times 12.3 repeating minus 10, which would equal 51.6 repeating. Measure of angle S equals 10 times 12.3 repeating plus 5, which when you plug that into your calculator gives you 128.3 repeating. Because of these repeating decimals, if you got near there, I am happy with your work. Please make sure that your notes match mine completely. Take a picture of them, add that to your